Hello and welcome to the last video you will ever need to watch about SMMA niches. The reason that I'm so confident in that is because today we're not just sharing a long list or the best ones for 2022 or whenever you're watching this. We're sharing principles that are tried and true and will help you choose the right niche no matter what time of year or what time of your life or season of the world is in. We just want to look at the actual principles today instead of just a list. If you don't know who I am, my name is Keaton Walker. I run a marketing agency. We do around $70,000 a month right now. And I don't have a course to sell you, but I do have coaching to sell you if you're interested in that. The course is free. Check it down in the description below. So without further ado, let's get into the video. What we're going to cover today, guys, is number one, why niche down? Number two, the mental frameworks behind niching down. And then third, how to pick a service for the niche that you've actually chosen, because those are highly interrelated. It's not enough to just choose an industry. You have to figure out where you're going to sell them as well. All right, let's get into it. Here we are in my computer with these lovely slides. As you can see, it's keaton.com/coaching. Go check it out. The riches are in the niches, or the riches are in the niches, as some people say. And these are the three things that we're covering today. So first, let's talk about why niche down. Number one, simplicity scales. Complexity does not. It's a lot easier to take care of clients when you only have one kind of client. Secondly, more compelling marketing. So an example of this is in my marketing materials for my marketing agency, I say, we only work with orthodontists and we know what we're doing. Then when people get on calls, we can say, we've worked with 100+ orthodontists. We know what we're doing. We've had a lot of experience in your field, and people like that. And it tends to help us get more sales. Number three on here is it's easier to become the best in the world. And then have branding in parentheses after this. So this goes back to when I dropped out of college to start my marketing agency. One of my roommates at the time was like, hey, Keaton, you know what? It's not bad that you're doing this, because you know what my dad says is, like, if you're the best in the world at something, you'll never go hungry. Like, you'll always have success. And his dad works for like Rhodes Rolls or something, that like roll company, which is really funny. And I really took that to heart. And I thought, how can I become the best in the world at something that's so broad like business? I can't really. So let's go as niche as possible, and I can become the best in the world at orthodontic marketing, or at least one of the best, like top 3, I would say. And this really helps your brand also get big in the space, because when you're marketing directly over and over and over again to a small group, then people start to recognize you, they start to talk about you, and you build a brand instead of just, having to do outreach every single day for the rest of your life. Number 4 here is that it's beginner friendly. Anybody who's just getting into business or just getting into the agency world, when you have a niche, it just really helps your life be a lot easier in the beginning when you don't know what you're doing. And then 5th, lifestyle friendly. I was talking to a coaching student the other day about how little I work. It feels like I probably spend 20 to 30 hours max on my agency every week, probably closer to 20, and bring home a 6-figure income from that. And I don't say that to brag at all. I'm just saying that if I hadn't niched down and I was stuck doing all this custom work, that would not be the case at all. And to tack onto that lifestyle one, the reason I'm able to do that is because it's fairly easy to train people on a very niche type of service. So I can replace myself quite easily. Instead of having to hire somebody that's quite expensive to figure things out, I just kind of create the system for one type of niche and then have somebody come in and execute that system for me. All right, now let's go into mental frameworks for niching down, or the mental framework for niching down. I really think you're gonna like this part of the video. It's really good. So there are 4 options for niching down. Well, really 3 options, because one of them is the first one here, broad clientele, broad services, which is a traditional agency. Then you can have niche clientele with broad services. So that would be like somebody serving chiropractors, but they do Google ads, Facebook ads, SEO, and social media for them. So that's our number 2 example here. Number 3 is broad clientele with niche services. So this would be someone that provides like cold outreach, like texting or outreach over social media or something like that. They could do that for pretty much anybody that has an offer to anybody. So an example of this would be something like a B2B prospecting company that sends like cold emails or cold texts or something like that out on behalf of other companies. It doesn't take that much tweaking, and it doesn't really make sense to just niche yourself super far down when all of the businesses you're working with are just marketing to other businesses, and like they could work with businesses all over the US. And then we've got number 4, niche clientele, niche services. This is what I do. This is my agency. Facebook ads for orthodontists. That's all we do. All right, great. Now let's talk about each of these in turn and the pros and cons considerations you need to have with each one. First of all, broad clientele, broad services. The issue or the risk you run here is razor thin margins. Not always, but a lot of the time, like traditional agencies don't have good margins. There's a lot of complexity because basically as I've got here on C, is glorified freelancing. Like literally any client that comes to us, like, yeah, we can do anything marketing wise. Like you have to charge so much, you have to like do so much custom work, like again, just glorified freelancing. And then letter D, marketing is wide and difficult. So this is like, hey, we're an agency that we do everything creative or everything when it comes to marketing online. Like there's some people that do this really, really well, but again, it's super complex and you're not as compelling with your marketing because you have to go so wide. And then letter E, this is the skill level. If you wanted to go this route, which I definitely don't recommend, it's an advanced skill level. Like you need to have some really good business experience before you go run something like this. Now, number 2, we've got niche clientele, broad services. Now, one thing you got to keep in mind here is that there's a lot of complexity to running multiple services, even if it's not quite as much because you've only worked with one niche. And letter B, it's not beginner friendly, which goes along with letter D, advanced skill set. Like just don't do this if you're a beginner, don't shoot yourself in the foot. Just figure out one channel. And then if you want to start branching out from there, you can. And letter C here, compelling marketing. This is very true. Like if you can say, hey, we run the whole marketing gamut for this one industry, you can really crush and keep clients for a long time. I've seen this executed beautifully in the orthodontic niche, actually, a company by the name of Hip Creative that does amazing things in the orthodontic niche. And they manage like the whole ecosystem of every single client. But again, quite advanced. Number 3, broad clientele and niche services. This is that B2B prospecting example I gave. So there's some complexity here, but not nearly as much as if you're running multiple services. And you can have pretty compelling marketing because you can say, hey, I worked with, an agency before because you're working with another agency. Or you could say, I've worked with these coaches before when you're working with another coach. But the likelihood of you having worked with somebody that's exactly like the other business is quite rare. And so the marketing can be compelling, but not as much as if you're super niche down. And the skill level here is intermediate to advanced. It's probably more like intermediate, just depends on what you're selling and how complex it is to deliver. But if you learn one skill and you get really good at that skill and you're pretty good at duplicating it across different niches, then this could be a great model for you. Lastly, niche clientele, niche services. This has the least complexity because you're just copy pasting. The marketing is very compelling because you can say, we just do this one thing for this one industry and we're really, really good at it. And these are the results that we typically generate. And then lastly, it's beginner friendly. Like everybody should start here pretty much, because it's easy to scale out and kind of change things as you go along, but you really should start with like one niche that you're serving. And the cool thing about service-based businesses is you don't have to go like rewrite a bunch of code like a software company. You can just like switch things up if you need to, okay? It's not that hard. All right, so that's the intro to the mental framework for niching down, but what about the levels of niching? Well, there's 5 that I came up with here that we can talk about. And again, really 4 because the first one is none. The second one is like slight niching. So this would be like, oh, we work with local businesses. Again, you have a really wide net with local businesses. Like it's kind of a recipe for disaster if you ask me, depending on what you're selling, but pretty tough if you're selling like a custom service. Letter C, or number 3 here, is medium niching. So you could say something like anybody with a $5,000 plus online offer, or sort of like a basket of niches. So you might have seen ads on YouTube or on Facebook that are like, are you an online consultant, course creator, or agency? Like that's a basket of 3 niches, company is serving with whatever they're doing. And that way they open up the floodgates a bit more, not being so narrow, but kind of serving a bit more diverse clientele and making their targeting easier. But again, the marketing is a little bit less compelling than if it just said agency owners or just said online coaches. Next up, we have D, which is narrow. So this would be like online coaches or e-commerce stores. The reason I say these are narrow as opposed to extreme is like online coaches might have really different offers, and e-commerce stores could have quite different price points and markets and all this stuff. And so even though you're in the niche, like kind of duplicating your processes are going to be quite different for each client because their business is going to be quite different. Whereas in letter E, which is extreme, if you're working with chiropractors, like most chiropractors have pretty much have the same business model. They might have little things changed around. It's a lot easier to copy paste a chiropractor ad campaign than it would be to copy paste an online coach ad campaign. And maybe it's not even a lot easier, it's just a little bit easier. But again, this is just another way to think about kind of drilling down all the different ways that you can niche down. Think of it sort of like a funnel where at the top you're super wide and then you just get lower and lower and more defined. Another thing to think about is horizontal niching. So probably every YouTube video you've ever watched about this just gives you a list and says like, these are good niches, but they may not have mentioned that like, look, real estate could be a great niche, but there's tons of people in real estate that just kind of do it as a hobby. Or, you know, there's medical professionals who are quite good and have private practices and make a ton of money and have a good business mindset. And there's medical professionals that barely make any money and you don't want to work with them because their mindset's completely shot. So what we've got here with horizontal niching is saying, I'm going to pick the chiropractor space, but I'm only working with chiropractors that make between 1 million and 1.5 million a year. Or I'm only working with dental practices that make between 1 and 1.5 million a year. Or in a really extreme case, I probably wouldn't recommend this, but you could say I work with all local businesses as long as they're making 1 to 1.5 million a year. And that would work more if you're doing like consulting or something like that, as opposed to like done for you services, which could get kind of wild with that kind of model. But just think about this, like there's a slice of every niche that's more ideal for you than, you know, the slice under it, or maybe even the slice above it, because you're not advanced enough to serve those people yet. And then lastly, another way to think about niching, guys, is thinking about the clientele or business model niching. So you'll see this again in like the consulting world or in like investment firms that go invest in businesses and then help grow them. But you could take the same approach for your marketing agency. So one example is local service-based businesses. We work with all service-based businesses. We work with e-learning businesses, online service providers, B2B service providers, consumer e-commerce companies, as opposed to like business e-commerce companies, or letter F, which is mass market consumer product companies. So these are all like similar type businesses that you could go work with. So hopefully you can see here is that you're still sort of niching down, but you're not niching down so far that you're just saying, I only work with this sort of local business. Again, a more advanced strategy, but it's helpful to think about this because it's not as simple as, oh, I just choose dentists and dentists are my niche. Like, you know, you can kind of grow into other things, even though you can start there with the dentist thing. All right, so now how do you actually go about choosing this niche? I recommend everyone begin with 1-1-1. So this is like the Sam Ovens method of doing business. One person that you're selling to, one product that you're selling, and one method of getting customers. That simplifies things. I have a friend who has a $300,000 a month agency, and that's what they do, 1-1-1, and that's the only way he was able to scale up. It's a lot easier as a beginner to do this. So I recommend everybody start there. And like, don't think you're the exception. Even if you're advanced and you feel like, you know, you could serve more than one type of business, it's really, really smart to just start there. And then again, you can always go bigger later if that's what you decide. So my second thing is scale until you get more opportunities. An example here is we were just marketing for orthodontists, like trying to find orthodontists. And then somebody approached us and said, hey, do you do marketing for sleep apnea? And we said, yeah, actually we did it once like 3 years ago. We could try it out for you guys. And we tried it out and ended up working out like this cool partnership with a sleep apnea company. And it's been a big win for us. That was a really cool opportunity that came to us because we were focused on one niche. And then there was like a slight offshoot of that niche that came to us and we started marketing for them as well. But a huge disclaimer is to be careful with these new opportunities. You know, if I had $100 for every single time somebody had told me, I'm going to bring you so many customers, or like, we're going to partner on this deal and it's going to be great, whatever it was, like this once in a lifetime amazing opportunity, and then it just turned into nothing, I would have a lot of money. So just be careful. Like, there's a lot to be said for just kind of staying in your own lane, doing your own thing, even when other opportunities come to you. It's kind of the paradox of success, is that focusing on one thing opens up more opportunities to you, which can then distract you and lead to failure. So you have to be careful about what you pursue, even though your success will give you options. All right, so now let's drill down even further. How do we choose this 1-1-1 method? First of all, you need to pick a vertical. So the first piece of criteria I'm going to give you on your vertical is the mid-tier should comfortably be able to afford $3,000 in marketing spend only with your company. And ideally, this would be closer to like $4,000 or $5,000, and then you can charge $3,000 so that it's really, really comfortable for them. And when I say mid-tier, I mean like the middle of the road business owner. The average business owner in that niche can afford that, because if you're only working with the super high end, they're going to be a little bit harder to reach, a little bit harder to sell as a beginner, and you can kind of scale up to that. But as a beginner, sometimes the only place you can get your foot in the door is with that middle range, people who are willing to, you know, try you out. And then the second piece of criteria for your vertical is the ability to easily reach the decision maker through at least one channel. And then in parentheses, I have the sales cycle must be short. What I mean by the sales cycle is if you're selling to like, I had a friend who was selling a software to MLM companies. He's going to these network marketing companies and he's like trying to sell this cool CRM to them. But there's so many levels of like, they would really sell out and have this crazy product that just goes to a ton of people if they got the partnership. But the sales cycle of getting the network marketing company to accept their product was taking like 8 to 9 months. So it just wasn't worth it at that point. So they ended up finding a different niche where they could just sell and make money right away and kind of get that product market fit without having to wait 8 to 9 months for a sale. And then lastly, in your vertical, some people say that you should have 100,000 total addressable market. This is not imperative. This is something you can kind of work up to. So my niche, for example, there's only like 10 to 12,000 active practicing orthodontists in the US. We also work in Canada, but combined like maybe 20,000 in both of those countries. So that's not even close to 100,000. But with the sleep apnea stuff we've been doing, and then also the option to kind of get into implants at some point, we sort of are taking that total addressable market and opening it up quite a bit. And that's the same thing I would say to you, like you don't have to start out with 100,000. It's going to be easier if you have that many in your niche, but there's many niches that are great that just have a small amount, and that's fine. But if there's only like 500 or 1,000 of them in the US or something like that, and they're really hard to get a hold of, then you might start to rethink it. Cool. So once you have something with that criteria, then what I want you to do is take a horizontal slice of that. So for example, work with companies doing between 1 and 1.5 million a year. This kind of ensures that you're working with at least like some decent level of business owner. If they're making like the middle to the higher end amount that most of the people in that industry make. Now the 1 to 1.5 could be completely off. Like if you're working in a certain industry, that might be super high. And if you're working in a different industry, it might be super low. Now you probably want to tend towards the industries that make $1 million or more in revenue every year. But I do have a friend that runs an agency in the restaurant niche, believe it or not. And he doesn't work with anybody that's not making over 500K a year. And that's how he differentiates and makes sure that they can afford his services and they want to stay long-term. And another note, guys, like this horizontal slice thing, as a beginner, you're not gonna really know how to do it. So don't stress out too much. Just kind of pick something about what you think. And then as you're going through and doing research, ask people like, what do you think is a good like average revenue that people are typically making? And then start to ask on your sales calls and just form an opinion like, okay, most of the good business owners are over this amount and most of the, I don't really want to work with you business owners are under this amount. And then start to qualify on that as you get bigger. And then the third thing we need to do to choose our 111 is to choose a prospecting channel. So LinkedIn, Facebook, cold email, cold texting, whatever you're doing, just pick one when you're starting out because you want to get really good at that one. Obviously that one has to work for you, so it's okay to switch them up. And depending on the niche, one might be better than the other, but really safe bet is Facebook. Like pretty much everybody is on Facebook and pretty much every niche you can find someone on Facebook. LinkedIn is sort of like the professional version of that. And there's some really great niches that LinkedIn is good for as well. But I believe LinkedIn has like, 1/20th the amount of people that Facebook has on it. So cool. Now the last thing in our 111, we have our vertical. We've taken a slice of it horizontally. Now we've picked a prospecting channel. Now let's choose a service to go along with that. This one can be really tough for some people to wrap their head around. Don't worry, we're gonna make it really easy for you. So again, we want to begin with one digital marketing skill or service. Just Facebook ads, just Google ads, just SEO. Keep it simple, stupid. That's my philosophy in life. And then here I've added, and go high level. HighLevel has some really awesome services that can make you sticky, give you some downsells. I'll go into it a bit more later, but just think about the CRM and the service that you're selling as one package that goes together. Now, some people might be worrying, but like, what if somebody wants to do Google ads and all I know is Facebook ads? It's okay. Just say, hey, I know a guy, he does Google ads, and then get a referral fee for the person that you referred to Google and get them to use your version of Go High Level and reinforce like that software side of things. Again, we'll talk about that more in just a minute. And then I recommend having 1 to 3 tiers. So again, 111, technically you're only supposed to have one, but HighLevel makes it so easy to have this like 3-tiered system that I'm starting to recommend it even for beginners. So the first one is just Go High Level. So the core features of HighLevel. Then we've got Go High Level plus base level marketing service. So this would be like the basic SEO or the basic Facebook ads. Go High Level plus aggressive marketing service. Again, just sticking with one skill, just Facebook ads, just SEO, etc. All right, now I'm really about to blow your mind. And this should give you a lot of clarity on how to structure your offer. So here we are with service tiers. We've got $199 to $499 a month, and this is going to be your core high-level features. So the chat widget, Google My Business messaging, conversations dashboard, and like two-way texting. These are the main things that business owners want and that are super quick wins for them. You could also integrate like the forms on their website so that all their leads are going to one spot, and you just sell that for $199 to $499 a month. Great. Then next up, we've got your $1,000 to $1,500 a month package, which would be Go High Level plus base marketing. So basic SEO, Facebook ads, Google ads. And this is $1,000 to $1,500 total, not the fee that you're charging. So including ad spend or including whatever you need for SEO, you're charging $1,000 to $1,500. I have a client that's on something like this. I charge him like, well, it's cheaper than this actually. I charge him like $400 a month total. And then he pays about $400 a month in ad spend. So his total cost is like $800. He's super happy with that. Scratches an itch for him. And it's not like this huge concern about crazy ROI from a more aggressive package. But that does bring us to our more aggressive package, which is $2,000 to $4,000 a month. And that would be Go High Level as your CRM plus aggressive marketing. So SEO, Facebook ads, Google ads, whichever one of those, just pick one and make it like the aggressive program where they get everything and it's all included for that price. And this is the really cool part, guys, that these kind of target different horizontal slices of your market. So the core Go High Level features are going to be perfect for beginners. So if you get a beginner that's reaching out to you, you can just sell them this. They probably won't be able to afford this, but they'll definitely afford this. And it's super great for them. Then you've also got like intermediate here, or just for someone where it's not working super well, or they tried it out before, but they just want something cheap. This is great. And then if you want someone who's more aggressive, then you do this. Very cool. You can just slice the market that way. And that way you kind of monetize every lead that comes through instead of just saying, no, we don't work with you, because high level is so easy to just get them onboarded and then they just pay you forever. All right, so now this begs the question, what digital marketing skill should I learn if I don't know any skills? Well, there are a lot. These are all the different types of agencies I have listed on the screen. Facebook ads, copywriting, meme videos. So those are like the videos that like Gary Vee makes. SEO, Google ads, webinars, YouTube organic, YouTube ads, websites, TikTok ads, software / automation. So like building people's funnels or automations or whatever inside High Level or ClickFunnels. These are all the options you have. So what do you choose? Let's go to this decision tree. This is what I recommend in another video, which you should definitely go check out. It's the Prospecting and Outreach Masterclass. I will put up a picture here and link to it down below as well. So the question you need to ask yourself is, do you have one or multiple specific digital marketing skills? So Facebook ads, copywriting, SEO, TikTok ads. If yes, I would recommend just sticking with that skill and selling it to a niche, finding a niche that needs that, and then figuring out how to go from there. If you don't have any of these skills, like literally starting from scratch, then what you should do is conduct niche research and then decide which service you're going to learn. So this is actually a lot smarter way to do it. And if you have multiple skills, then I would also recommend going and conducting niche research and then deciding which one to sell to them. I went with this one, and like sometimes, grass is always greener on the other side, but I'm like, would my agency be different if I had learned SEO, which is a bit stickier or can be stickier if you sell it the right way, deliver it the right way? I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell, but the reason I recommend just sticking with what you know is it's going to be a faster ramp up for you to start, which is half the battle when you're a beginner. If you end up going the niche research route, these are the questions you need to be asking yourself and others throughout the process. So what are existing agencies selling to the niche? What have business owners in the niche done to market in the past? What are the biggest businesses in the niche doing to advertise? What are the business owners in this niche citing as their biggest problems? And what are agency owners in the niche saying about the niche? Go figure this out, talk to people, get on the phone. I promise you, this is the best way to start. You're gonna get your jitters out, you're gonna get a lot of information on your niche that you wouldn't have had otherwise, and you're gonna get out of your head, which is the most important part when you're starting. So figure out how to get on the phone with somebody that knows this kind of stuff. All right, cool. Now let's go to this page. I know this looks like a lot, but what I'm trying to point out here is that each one of these skills that I talked about has pros and cons. I've just listed one of each here. So for example, on the copywriting side, if you started a copywriting agency, it's like the highest income skill I think you could ever have. But the con is that it's a lot of manual work. And then if we look at Google ads, the pro is that there's really qualified leads that come through Google ads because they've been searching, but the con is that they're very expensive for certain niches. So It just depends on what trade-off you want to make. And the other thing is, guys, like some of these are going to work amazingly well for some niches and some just aren't going to work or aren't relevant for other niches. So it also heavily depends on the niche you choose, which service you choose. And that's why it's important to conduct research, figure out what's already working, and then just kind of go down that path. All right, now you're probably wondering, can I just outsource the ads or the SEO or whatever I'm selling? Like, can I just get a contractor or white label agency and get them to do everything? And the answer is yes, that you can. There's actually a few different ways to do this. I don't recommend all of them for beginners. So we've got 4 options when it comes to actually delivering the marketing agency service. We've got in-house, so this could be do it yourself, like actually you, the agency owner, doing it, or an employee that you hire. You could have an individual contractor, which is just a 1099 if you're in the US. I don't know what it's called if you're elsewhere, but basically this means one person that comes in that you don't control like you would an employee. They can work their own hours and they can get whatever it is you need done. Then you've got the white label agency option. There are agencies out there that just specialize in doing only the service. Typically they're outsourcing it for really cheap overseas, which could be great, but there's also, you know, some pros and cons to that, which we'll go over. And then there's the non-white label agency. This one is really interesting to me. This is sort of just like outsourcing, but telling the person that you're outsourcing. So another term for non-white label agency is being like a digital general contractor. So you're sort of just a consultant that controls the CRM that you sell to the business, which would be go HighLevel. And then you say, okay, you want to run Google ads? I've got a guy. You want to run Facebook ads? I've got a guy. And you just bring them in. You're not really running an agency at that point. You're running a software company, but that's completely fine. There's tons of people having a lot of success with that. So now let's look at the pros and cons of each of these. In-house, the pros are that you quote unquote own the process. You created it. You train somebody on it. It's really easy. And you get to see everything and how it works and like make sure that everything's getting done exactly how you like it. The cons are it takes time to learn how to do things yourself and also, you know, hire and everything. Like actually having somebody on payroll is a responsibility not a lot of people want. Then we've got individual contractor here. So the pros, this is great for like 1 to 10 clients. If you're just like charging somebody, let's say $1,500 for an agency fee, and then you're paying a contractor $500 a month per client, it's great to scale up there. And who knows, maybe you could have a great partnership with that person. But once you get to like 20, 30 clients, you're just going to want an employee on there or somebody that's a little bit more invested in your business. And that goes along with the con is that you're dependent on one person who could just ghost you at any time, which I've heard of happening. Then we've got the white label agency pros. Not relying on one person. So if you're outsourcing to an agency, they've got a team of people working on your account. The cons are a lot can go wrong. I have a hard enough time getting my team to do things like exactly as I want them to, not because they're not good, they're great, but it's just hard to communicate and kind of train people up. I'm sure people have had great success with it, but I personally just feel like there's a lot. You'd really have to vet and make sure and really follow up and watch everything to make sure that the results are good. And then another thing here, when you don't really have any involvement in the process and you don't know what it's like to run the ads or do whatever else, like, and it's not working, when you don't know why your business isn't working, like this doesn't scream like, oh, I think you could scale to the moon with just, you know, using another white label agency. If you have done that in the past, I'm happy to be proved wrong, but those are the problems that I see from it as an outsider looking in. And then we've got the non-white label agency, which is what I said, the digital general contractor. The pros here are that you're not responsible when ads don't go well or SEO doesn't go well, the other person is. But the cons are you're making less money because you'd probably get like maybe 10, 15% of what the other agency is billing to that person. So how do you decide which one of these to use? We've got another decision tree for you because we love those around here. Do you have 6+ months of hands-on digital marketing experience? Then the answer is yes, you should just go do your own thing, pitch and charge what you feel comfortable with, and then just do the fulfillment on your own. And then maybe do one contractor and then eventually get an employee type thing. If this is your first business, then I recommend you just do free or cheap work to get started so that you understand the process. And you don't have to get like amazing, but you should understand like kind of the basic ins and outs. So eventually you could hire an employee and actually know what they're talking about. And then lastly, if this isn't your first business, then go ahead, feel free to use a white label provider or contractor for those first few clients, see how it goes for you. Just, I think for beginners, outsourcing right away is not the right choice. All right, guys, we're almost done. Let's go ahead and put this all together for first Rob, our man Rob, who has no experience, and then our man John, who has 2 years of SEO experience. Awesome. So the first thing Rob is going to do is spend 60 minutes niche brainstorming, or brainstorming what his niche should be. He's going to look through the lists that I have linked down below this video. Tons of crazy ideas in those lists. And he's going to ask his friends and family, like, what local business makes a lot of money that you wouldn't expect? Or like, you know, if you were going to start a marketing company, who would you market for? And then also go ask in Reddit and Facebook groups and just see what crazy ideas you might be able to pull out of those groups. After 1 week of doing that, thinking through everything, then it's time to choose a niche. You just need to choose. Then you take that niche, you slice it horizontally, try to figure out what you think you're gonna work with. And again, you can kind of figure that out along the way, but just get a starting point. And then choose a prospecting channel for that niche. Is it gonna be Facebook? Is it gonna be LinkedIn? Whatever it is, wherever you have a hunch that you'd be able to find those people, or you know for a fact that you'd be able to find those people. Then number 3, you begin niche research. So you talk to people that run this type of business. You talk to agencies that service them. You talk to anybody that might have insider knowledge. You just pay them for their time, or you just say, hey, I'll give you some value for value, get on the phone with me, and I'll try to provide some marketing tips for you as you're going through. And then step number 4 is going to be charge a test rate to get a case study from that client. So instead of charging your full amount, you charge half of what you would normally charge and just say, hey, I love a testimonial at the end of this. I'd love to just pull some information about how it all works and share that with future clients as a thank you for, you know, letting me be your first person to try this out. And then lastly, just repeat steps number 1 through 4 if there are major niche flaws. I want to stress, guys, that it's very rare for there to be major niche flaws. This happened once recently to a coaching student who was trying to find, like, he wanted to go into the medical professional niche, some sort of niche in the medical industry. And he started reaching out to podiatrists. And somebody on one of those calls said podiatry is an endangered profession. Like, there's just not a lot of people going into it. And that's really important to consider. Like, if the industry is declining, like, it's not smart to go into that because it's just going to be an uphill battle in every single way. Like, marketing for them is going to be an uphill battle. Getting them to sign with you is going to be an uphill battle. Like, everything about that is tough. So try to find something that's either A, consistent, or B, a growing industry. Cool. Now let's talk about John. He has 2 years of SEO experience, guys. It's going to be pretty much the exact same thing for him, all 4 of these things. And then he's just going to repeat if he doesn't get it right. And even though he has more experience, he's going to go through this process as well because he knows it'll help him set up a good foundation for the rest of his agency. And he can always go a bit wider if another opportunity comes to him. All right, now just a couple more minutes. Bear with me. This stuff is really important. We're going to talk about mindset because there's some big issues that people will have, or, you know, some really an action paralysis type things that will happen after somebody watches a video like this. So I need to knock all these barriers down. First thing you need to understand mindset wise is you will never know everything there is to know about a niche. In the long run, improvisation beats research. So just like try it out. Don't overthink it. Number 2, an in is better than the perfect niche. So like if your uncle or somebody you know has a dental office or something that you might be able to market for, like, get your feet wet with the person that you know. Do not try to go do some crazy other thing when you have somebody right there that you could try marketing for and potentially get some good results for, and then they could keep referring you. Number 3, there is no perfect niche. There are only like broke niches and niches that aren't broke, and you want to find one of the ones that aren't broke and sell to them. Number 4, get rid of the quote unquote ego niche. A lot of people are like, oh, I want to do medical because medical is noble. Get over yourself. It doesn't matter. Just find somebody that makes money and like go start a marketing agency in that business. There's tons of different things that aren't as obvious as medical that arguably may be more altruistic if that's what you really care about. But most people don't know about, and you could have a really good experience in one of those niches as long as you aren't caught up in the ego of needing to work with a certain niche. Next, don't assume you know what the niche needs. This is why you have to do research. Like, even if you're experienced, even if you've worked in the industry for a long time, you need to talk to people and understand their business model. It's crucial. And then lastly, on this page, one more slide after this, guys, take the next comfortable step. This is what I tell my coaching students. Like, you're nervous because you're thinking about step 10 when you just need to do step 1. Step 1 and 2 is what you should focus on right now. Occasionally think about 3, but it's fine. Just do 1 and 2. Don't think about 10. Just take the next step. Go through this process, figure out how it works. And, you know, if it doesn't work out for you, then no harm, no foul, you've learned something and you can move on. And lastly, 3 more points on this page, guys. At some point, you just have to commit to a niche. That's just how it works. You just have to commit. It doesn't matter. It's not going to be perfect. And that's the beauty of business. A broken business is a growing business. So you're never going to find anything perfect. And then we've got, if a different opportunity comes to you outside your niche, either just say no to it or just sell them Go High Level. Sell them the CRM if it makes sense for them to have the CRM. Otherwise, just say, hey, I'm sorry, I've got somebody I know that can help you out, and go post in a group and say, hey, who services this niche? And then try to vet the people and help the person if that is what you want to do. But don't be scared to say no. Like, commit to a niche and just keep going in that niche, or sell them high level and just be done with it. And then lastly, guys, get creative and be a student of the process. Like, the people who succeed are the people that don't take themselves too seriously. And I think about all these crazy things I did at the beginning just to get creative and like see what would work. And I was a student of the process, and that's why I'm here today, sharing my sage wisdom, if that's what you want to call it. That's why I know these things, is because I've just been creative and kind of like tried things out and seen if they worked or not. So just try it, and I bet you'll be surprised at the results. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. Like, honestly, thanks so much. I really enjoy putting out these videos. If you'd like to register for my free course below, it just has all my YouTube videos in order so that you can understand all of the like foundational things of building an agency in order, because they're scattered over the internet and I want to put them in order for you. So thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll see you next time.